Hi, welcome to Venture Scaler. I'm Sasha, 3-time head of people at venture-backed startups.
And I'm Jake, 3 times ops and growth leader from the venture-backed startup circuit as well. And we're here dropping all of our best tips on how to scale your startup.
Hi everybody, thanks so much for joining us here at Venture Scaler. I'm Sasha.
And I'm Jake.
And today we're talking about designing projects to fit into your candidate evaluation or your hiring process, and how to use a team in the interview process to evaluate candidates.
Right. So we're going to skip ahead a little bit and just assume that you're running your interviews. So there's a lot of really amazing resources on how to run great interviews, different questions to ask, and we have a lot of those resources too. But we want to really hit on, like after you go through the screening interview process, a few other pieces of the interview that we think are really important to make sure that you're getting to the right final candidate. So let's break this down. We're going to talk about the project or the exercise, and then reviewing each candidate as a team. So let's dive into the exercise.
Let's do it. So not all businesses choose to use an exercise or a project or a demo with the candidates to see how their skills manifest in real life. I personally love to do it across all roles, and I know Jake does too.
Yep.
And we can give you some examples of what that looks like. But the main reason we do that, and why I love doing it, because there are candidates that are amazing at interviewing.
Yeah.
They can talk your socks off. You're like, wow, this candidate's amazing, and I need them on my team. And then if you have them do some sort of skills-based assessment, regardless of the role, you can get some insight into what the caliber of work would look like. And I've been in interviews where I've had my top 2-3 candidates, and they all get projects. And I'm like, wow, these are hot garbage. Like, never hiring any of these people. For real. And then you have this underdog. You're like, 4th, 5th, runner up. I don't know. We'll see. They do the project and they blow you away.
Yeah.
And that's one of my biases. And I know that I'm aware of and I work on, is that if someone's great at talking and like they're fun to talk to, it's like, they must be good at their job. And that's not always the case, which is why we use projects.
Yeah, I think the only thing to add there is that sometimes it's hard to qualify if someone's really skilled in a certain area just by talking about it. So like even little things like their ability to write emails or copy and things like that, you can't, it's hard to tease that out in a verbal conversation or over video.
Right.
So having that exercise is the ability to dig into that area in a way that you wouldn't be able to otherwise.
That's great. So let's run through, we'll high level touch on the types of projects you can do. I'll start with some business roles, and I know we have some ops and some more technical roles as well. Like if you're hiring a support rep, this is a role where they're interfacing with customers all day, every day. And so they need to be able to respond quickly and effectively with sometimes some technical responses and otherwise just very friendly. And so we send them a list of potential candidate questions that they'll be getting in through our ticketing system and ask them to write responses. So since this is an early stage junior level hire, it's not a super robust project, probably takes them 30 minutes, but it gives us insight into how they write, if they form full sentences, which like sometimes not the case, and if they can go on our website and pull resources in and are resourceful in answering these questions. That's probably the shortest project I've ever given. For roles like a salesperson or a recruiter, we'll do a mock demo or a mock interview. Well, we'll ask them to either create a deck and give a sales demo, or for recruiting, I've asked them to write a job description for a role and then interview me against the job description based on like my mock profile, and then evaluate if I would be a good fit for the role.
Oh, that's great. I've literally been in some like in-person exercises where like we'll do it. It won't be like a take-home, but we'll like pretend to get on the phone and all right, I'm a customer. Like talk to me, just to see how they do, because part of the job they were going to be on the phones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's great. What about some of the technical ones? I know you have some great examples of those.
Yeah. So some of the ones that we had. So I know like coming from Uber, I had to do 2 exercises when I got hired there. So one was a quantitative exercise. It was an analytics test. So it was just, you got a CSV file dump of 2 weeks worth of trip data, and you had to manipulate that data and get answers to questions that they had. So it was like 24 different questions that you had in the time test, just to see, can you do that type of work, right? It was like it was a screener test that came before a lot of the like other team interviews. to make sure that they weren't going to end up wasting their time on someone who wasn't analytical because they needed that in the role. The other exercise I had to do when I came on was put together a launch plan for a new city. So what would I do to get new drivers, new riders, and how would I think about the airport and launching that? So it was put a presentation together. And the really cool part was that once I did get hired, 3 months later, I was launching that city. So I was like literally using that plan, and obviously they had their own plan in place, but to help launch that market. And it was a good way for them to understand like how I would think about it and can I actually put together a strong plan, because they needed me to come in and do that job.
Yeah. And sometimes these can take a long time, and I've paid candidates for these projects if it's going to be a robust analysis.
Yeah.
If it's something quick that's almost like part of an interview or prep for an interview, I won't. But if it's these, like some of these can take like 10 hours to do well, so we'll offer to pay candidates for their time. That's
a great point. I actually went through an interview for they paid me to come into work for 3 days.
That's so awesome.
And I worked with the team and pulled data and got insights and put together a presentation for the leadership team by the end of it. And I got paid 3 full days of work at like a certain hourly rate to do that.
That's awesome.
So yeah, a lot of different ways to put these together, but
maybe I'll start interviewing places and get paid double money. This is a really good idea.
So I think the big takeaway though is that you want to create something that helps represent the work that they will actually be doing, to see can he or she do the job? What's the quality of work?
And on the flip side, ensuring that when the candidate is going through this project, they get an accurate reflection of what the role will actually be doing.
Yes.
So they could do this and like, oh, this is hot garbage. I want no part of doing this 40 hours a week. Or, wow, this is amazing. Sign me up. Can't wait to do more.
Yeah. Last little point before we move on to the next section. The other things that I look for in exercises, they're a little bit more outside of the exercise itself. Sometimes I look for quality of work and for turnaround time. So if you're going to look for those things, make sure you add that into the instructions and say that like I'm grading this on quality and on turnaround time and like all these other things. But I've been able to gauge the excitement a candidate has for the role, because they're just like working on it like immediately after we get off the phone. As soon as I send it, they're sending it right away. I've also had really promising candidates that just blew it off and didn't send it until like a few days later, and it just put up like a really big red flag and made me second guess my thoughts about those candidates. So a couple other things to look at and things you can use the exercise for.
No, I love that. And it's one more data point for the interviewing team to use to evaluate this candidate. I think it segues nicely into the team evaluation.
Yes.
And I'm always hesitant with team interviews to use team feedback unless everyone is trained up, because it is so easy to like, oh, I love them, they're so fun to talk to, or they like this thing that I like, or they've worked somewhere I've worked. Yeah, I think they'd be a great culture fit. Like, hate that. And sometimes it's hard to like take feedback seriously. So interviewing training is so key in having this and inviting other team members to be part of the process. And then this team review period is also huge. So why don't you dive into what that looks like before and during?
Yeah, so the team review, so I've ran this process last couple of jobs I've been in, where we bring together everyone who has interviewed a candidate. So after like you're maybe down to your top 3, top 5, wherever you're getting to, but you bring the team together to review that candidate. The big thing here is that you want to try as best you can to remove bias and try to get away from groupthink.
Right.
So the whole idea around, I don't know, if a peer comes in and they say, I did not like that candidate, they were terrible, and I came in thinking they were my number one. I really like that person. Now I don't want to look bad, especially if like this person's higher than me, right?
They're more senior,
I don't want to come in now. I need to defend myself coming into it.
Or you're questioning your decision making.
Yeah, but I think that's it's really important. So the idea is to come in blind and get everyone's opinion all at once. So what we do, one is you have your own written feedback.
Ahead of time.
Right
after you complete your interview.
Yep. And ideally you get that into your ATS system so that eventually everyone's able to see it, but that no one's seeing this ahead of time, but you have it logged. But you have that written feedback down. I try to bring my written notes or my printed out notes into that review session with everyone who's interviewed the candidate, so I have my notes and I can back up what I'm going to say. Right. And then when we get into that review session, I always like to start with a thumbs up, thumbs down. Just Roman style. Everyone starts
heads down.
Heads down, thumbs up. Everyone starts neutral, and then you only can pick thumbs up or thumbs down. No sideways.
Right.
Get that out of here. Get it out. So we just go 1, 2, 3, and then everyone puts either a thumbs up or a thumbs down based on if they'd hire or not.
Right.
And that coming in, and that's the first thing you do before you even start talking about any feedback or the candidate at all, it removes that bias and it bypasses the groupthink, at least in the beginning. So now you can see, there were 3 yeses and 1 no. Let's start with that no.
Yeah.
I want to hear why you think this would not be a good fit, and maybe that person got something that the rest of the interviewers didn't get. Maybe they got a story or an anecdote or a big red flag, and something maybe that might have skipped by, oh, you know what, now that you say that, you're right, they did do that. So just kind of making you, gut check ahead of time, this is what my feedback is. And then you can come in with that written feedback, and if you're asked, okay, you were the person that said no, why?
Yeah.
Well, now I'm gonna go through my feedback and give those actual reasons why. So that's how I think about and how I try to structure those review meetings.
And choose someone to run that meeting, typically the hiring manager, or it can be your people person.
Yeah.
And if someone says something like, they just didn't feel like a culture fit, or they'd be good in this role, push back and don't be afraid to say why or why not, or give me an example from the interview that made you think that way, and question why they're saying the things they are. Because like I said earlier, I think it's so easy to be I dislike them, or I made a snap judgment, or I hate the place that they worked, or I've heard negative things about their culture, I'm sure they're bad too.
Right.
And really dig in. And there could be validity in these snap judgments. We make judgments for a reason, but we should be really cautious before making these blanket assumptions about people.
Yeah, totally agree. The culture fit as a reason why not to hire is sometimes it's just used as a crutch. So I try to dig in with my team as to what was the thing that was said, what answer, what value did they go against, trying to get down to the root of why not.
Yeah.
So I think that's super important.
Yeah, and if you're kind of a mixed bag, but the hiring manager or the people person really feels strongly about moving forward, I've sometimes spun up another interview with someone senior on the team, or just again with the hiring manager, or I go really hard on reference checks and I'm digging in for these specific areas where someone's thrown up a flag, and try to find if anyone that's worked with this person before will flag anything similar.
That's a good point.
And just try to get more data points, because you don't want to throw someone out because a couple people got bad vibes or didn't like them, but you want to be thoughtful and be thorough in your process.
Yeah. Or they were nervous in their first interview, but warmed up and got more comfortable later on. So yeah.
Or you could have different interviewing styles, and someone's really rude and hostile. Not that they should or would be, but it could just be different.
Yeah.
So take all those things into consideration as you're reviewing. Try to do something skills-based, like a demo or a project, and hopefully you can find great candidates for your roles.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining and watching. Again, I'm Jake.
And I'm Sasha. This is Venture Scaler. See you next time.
Hey you, thanks for listening to Venture Scaler. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button below so you never miss an episode. The show is also available on all podcast platforms, so you can find it anywhere you want to listen. And if you found the information helpful, share it with a friend, family member, or anyone else that you think could benefit. You're also welcome to connect with us on LinkedIn. I'm Sasha Robinson, and that's Jake Huber. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.